my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy and the Interactive Advertising Bureau's transparency and consent framework. So it's called the IAB, the Europe's IAB Transparency and Consent Framework. So the IAB is a standards organization that helps marketers do advertising and do it in legal ways. So the IAB created as a result of GDPR being passed in Europe and also the e-privacy directive, where Europe was passing these laws and regulations that were putting more pressure on marketers to do advertising in ways that was more transparent and also took into account the consent of individuals. So the IAB put together this framework called Transparency and Consent Framework. They also call it TCF. And so this framework really is supposed to be a standard for marketers, and it basically helps marketers. For example, let's say a person comes to their website and then it records the choices that people make about how they want marketing to happen to them on websites. So it has kind of opt-ins and opt-outs more globally about the types of marketing that they want or they don't want. And so this process creates what's called a TC string, which is a transparency and consent string. And it's basically a cookie that gets dropped on someone's computer, and it has a kind of a string of letters and numbers, and they tell, these codes basically tell the marketer that you can do this, you can't do that, or whatever. So the purpose of this is so that when a person comes to their website, they're supposed to translate this string into choices about what they can and can't do with the information. The problem with this, and there was a case that was filed in 2018 by the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, saying that they think that the IAB's process for the transparency consent framework is against the GDPR, not compliant with the GDPR, and an early draft ruling of the Belgian Data Protection Authority agrees with this. So this is a draft ruling. There will be a final ruling that will come out in 2022 related to this, but it's a pretty blockbuster ruling. So the IAB is kind of the largest standards organization right now in the world that does these standards for websites. They say over 80% of websites use this particular standard, so there's kind of implication there. Part of this draft ruling is that this TC string, or the information that's related there, is personal data. So the IAB and any other website that is collecting this TC string information is collecting personal data. This may make them either a data controller or a processor under GDPR in Europe, which gives them more obligations probably than they've ever had before. And then also, this is something that is subject to not only the consent of the individual, but also transparency. So, this is going to be, when the final ruling comes out, it's already a blockbuster ruling. So it's going to be pretty significant and can have like a huge impact on marketers and how they do marketing. Also, this particular thing implicates real-time betting, RTB, because real-time betting is this programmatic way that marketing auction happens, and it happens billions of times a day. It happens extremely rapidly, and I guess the claim is that because this automated process happens so rapidly, it's sort of untethered from this consent mechanism. So it's sort of, in some ways can ignore the consent of individuals, and that's what makes it unlawful under GDPR. So this will be an interesting ruling to see the final ruling come out in 2022. It's going to be huge. It's going to have a tremendous impact on probably most marketers, most websites, most cookie collection of any type that's happening on the internet, because now this data that was kind of a free for all, because it didn't in the past fit neatly into the definition of being a data controller or a data processor. It's basically fragments of data that's collected sort of by marketers about people for no real reason beyond either selling them something or using it to build sort of risk profiles against people. Stuff like, people who search for chronic illnesses often or things like that. Those are also the types of things that get collected in this process, which also can be maybe considered by the EU as personal data as well and would need protection under the GDPR. So, yeah, this is going to be a huge thing. I'll probably do a follow up once the final version of this ruling comes out. But I think it's going to have a tremendous impact in 2022 on marketing, on companies that sell and share marketing data and share information about individuals that are on the internet. That's it. Thank you.